Welcome to Midnight Story. When the night falls silent and shadows grow longer, this is where horror and mystery begin. Real stories, urban legends, secrets never told. Be prepared, because something unseen might be watching you. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe, so you never miss the next terrifying tale. Because here, every midnight has a story. The clock struck 12, and the village lanes lay bathed in pale moonlight. From my bedroom window, I could see empty rice paddies stretching into the horizon. A chill breeze wove through the bamboo trees, carrying hushed whispers that seemed to drift from the abandoned house at the end of the lane. Locals claimed that after midnight, one could hear the soft sobbing of a child, though no living soul dared approach. I had returned to my childhood home for a brief visit, but that night, I felt drawn toward the eerie rumors swirling around the little girl ghost. Half asleep, I awoke to the creaking of my front door. It wasn't locked. Heart pounding, I crept into the corridor. A flicker of movement caught my eye. A shadow darted past the dim hallway lantern. I froze, convinced someone was playing a prank. Stepping outside into the courtyard, I spotted a small silhouette near the old mango tree. She turned, revealing pale eyes that reflected lunar light. Before I could call out, she dissolved into the darkness, leaving behind a single, tiny footprint in the soft earth. Over breakfast, I mentioned the sighting to Pa Dharma, the village head. His face tightened. "That is Lila," he whispered. "She died 10 years ago, drowned in the well behind my house. Ever since, her spirit has wandered." Others nodded in agreement, eyes downcast. They spoke of how Lila's laughter once filled the courtyard, but now echoed as a mournful cry. Some believed that calling her name would draw her closer, and that she appeared only to those who truly listened at midnight. Later that afternoon, I ventured toward the well. It sat at the edge of a neglected yard overgrown with weeds. Rusted iron bars covered the opening, yet I sensed a presence seeping through the cracks. The villagers warned me never to peer inside after sunset. Summoning courage, I knelt and shone my flashlight into the void. Water glinted far below, and something white floated at the bottom. A child's ragged doll, its once bright ribbon tattered and faded. My heart stuttered. This was Lila's toy. That night, I dreamt of a small hand clutching mine, dragging me toward the well's edge. I awoke in a cold sweat, convinced the ghostly child stood at the foot of my bed, humming a lullaby. The lullaby was hauntingly familiar. It matched the tune my grandmother used to sing when we were young. Terror numbed me as I reached for the bedside lamp, but it flickered out. Moments later, the humming stopped. Silence. Only the pounding of my own heart remained. Unable to sleep, I wandered into the courtyard. The air was thick with fog. Footsteps, small, deliberate, echoed on the wooden planks. Moonlight revealed a procession. A little girl in a drenched dress, her hair plastered to her cheeks. She stared at me with hollow eyes. "Help me," she whispered. I gasped for breath, but before I could step forward, she turned and glided toward the well. The wood groaned beneath her, and I collapsed to my knees, tears streaming down my face. Desperate for answers, I dug through my grandmother's old trunk. Among yellowed letters and forgotten trinkets, I found a photograph. Lila perched on the well's edge, smiling innocently, her doll in hand. Behind her, Pa Dharma stood, watching with a somber expression. On the back, written in faded ink, "May this memory guide you home." I held the photo aloft, and for a moment the room felt colder. A faint giggle echoed, as if Lila approved of my discovery. The house by the well was declared off-limits by villagers. They said anyone who entered at midnight never returned unchanged. Ignoring warnings, I slipped through a cracked window after sundown. Inside, the floors were littered with broken toys and decaying furniture. In the dim glow of my flashlight, I noticed tiny handprints smeared across a dusty wall. Each print looked fresh, as if a child had pressed them there just moments before. A door at the far end beckoned. Behind it, I found a small room draped in white cloth. As I left the forbidden house, a whistle floated across the courtyard. Soft, childlike, yet hollow. It grew louder, resonating through the mango trees. Leaves rustled, though there was no breeze. I turned to see Lila's silhouette standing beneath the well's arch. Her eyes glowed as she whispered the tune again. Unable to move, I watched her raise her hand to point toward the village cemetery. The whistle ceased. Night plunged into suffocating silence, broken only by the distant croak of frogs. The next morning, I found the doll from the well lying on my doorstep. It was wet, as if freshly pulled from water. The ribbon was neatly tied again. I picked it up. Its glass eyes held a profound sadness. I tucked it inside my bag, deciding to research more before returning it. But at dusk, when I reached for it, the doll was gone. In its place lay a small white feather. Panic surged through me. I realized Lila's spirit would not rest until I uncovered her story. I visited Nenek Sari, the oldest villager still living. Her home was a hive of incense smoke and ancient relics. "You seek the truth, child?" she croaked, beckoning me inside. She recounted Lila's final day, how the girl had wandered to the well chasing a butterfly, slipped and drowned without anyone noticing until morning. Guilt had swallowed the villagers. They buried her quietly, ashamed they had not searched sooner. Nenek Sari believed Lila's soul lingered because she was forgotten, her story untold. Clutching this new knowledge, I returned to the well. At midnight, I called out softly, "Lila." The wind stilled. From the shadows emerged the ghostly figure, her lips quivering. "My name," she whispered, barely audible. "I am Lila. I'm so cold." I knelt by the well and spoke gently, promising to share her story so she would never be forgotten. Her eyes softened, and she extended a translucent hand toward me, pressing a cold palm against my heart. In that moment, I felt every ounce of her pain. Determined to help Lila move on, I decided to hold a vigil at the cemetery. Villagers gathered under the moon, candles in hand. We set out lanterns along the path to the unmarked grave, just a small patch of earth near the banyan tree. As we reached the cemetery gates, a hush fell. Lantern flames flickered wildly, as though catching the breath of an unseen presence. We placed flowers and whispered apologies to Lila's spirit, praying for her peace. After the vigil, most villagers hurried home, but I stayed behind. The air grew frigid. Each exhale formed tiny clouds. A soft giggle floated past my ear. I turned to see Lila standing by the grave, her eyes like black wells. Slowly, she stepped forward and placed a small, cold hand on my shoulder. I felt a surge of sorrow wash over me, her emotions flowing into me like icy snowmelt. "Thank you," she murmured, voice echoing. Then she vanished, leaving the night colder than before. That night, rain fell in heavy sheets as I wandered the empty lanes. Memories of the abandoned house, the well, and the cemetery swirled in my mind. I felt Lila's presence at every turn, her tiny figure slipping between puddles, her sobs mingling with the patter of raindrops. I reached the well again, and rainwater washed over its rim, sending ripples down into darkness. In the water's reflection, I glimpsed a pale face staring back, tears trailing down translucent cheeks. She reached for me, but the ripples dissolved her image, leaving only silence. Determined to lay Lila's spirit to rest, I searched the records in the village office. There, hidden among dusty ledgers, was a burial register with no date or name, just the word Hilang, meaning lost. I traced its entry to a plot deeper in the cemetery than where we had laid flowers. Armed with a lantern and shovel, I braved the muddy path to the secluded area. The ground was soft. With trembling hands, I unearthed a small wooden box wrapped in decaying cloth. Inside lay Lila's nameplate and a lock of her hair. Tears welled as I realized no one had ever properly buried her. That night at midnight, I returned to place the box on her true resting spot. As I lowered it into the earth, the ground trembled. A pale figure materialized, screaming in anguish. Lila's wails ripped through the air as she reached for the box. "You forgot me," she cried. I fell to my knees, sobbing, pleading for forgiveness. "I'm sorry," I stammered. I will never let you be forgotten." The box glowed faintly, and Lila's form flickered in and out of view. Slowly, her screaming subsided, replaced by a soft, sorrowful sigh as she touched the box one last time. Pakdharma arrived, breathless, having sensed the turmoil. He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You have given her peace at last," he said. We stood in silence, the earth around the grave still and calm. In the dim glow of our lanterns, I noticed the soil begin to shift, as if a gentle wind passed through. Lila's voice, softer now, echoed around us. "Thank you." Then she appeared, hovering above the newly filled grave, a faint smile playing on her lips. Tears streamed down my face as I watched her fade into a cascade of moonbeams. In the days that followed, the village felt lighter. The incessant whispers and footsteps at midnight ceased. The abandoned house lost its oppressive aura. The wind no longer carried Lila's lullaby. I organized a proper memorial service. Villagers brought offerings of lanterns, incense, and toys. Children laughed as they ran through the courtyard, and the mango tree seemed to stand a little taller, as if celebrating. Nanaksari said the curse had been lifted because someone finally acknowledged Leela's existence and honored her memory. A week later, under the gentle glow of dawn, I stood by Lila's grave one last time. Wildflowers had already begun to bloom around the mound, their petals glistening with dew. The air was warm, scented with jasmine and fresh earth. Beside me, Pakdharma placed a single flower, whispering a quiet farewell. I whispered back, "Rest in peace, Lila." As the first rays of sunlight kissed the horizon, I felt a profound sense of closure. The village had reclaimed its serenity, and I knew that midnight would no longer bring fear, but rather a reminder that compassion can free even the most tormented souls.